Vanbecelaere. She is the head of EU affairs at the European Heat Pump Association. And before that, she also worked at the Belgium Heat Pump Association and did internships at DG Enner and the Belgian Embassy. Well, welcome to you, and the floor is yours for heat pumps in domestic heating.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I arrived a bit late, so unfortunately I missed the speech of Mr. Goldstein and also the introduction to the project. But just to mention, I came from a meeting with DG GROW about the Net Zero Industry Act, in which the heat pumps have been recognized as key strategic net zero technologies, just to show you that there's really a lot going on for our sector, and it's really, busy times, but super interesting. So I will start with a very obvious slide. Well, that heat pumps are mature and used everywhere today. Today we focus in this debate on the residential applications, but as you can see, they are also available in many other applications. Also in your house, your fridge is actually a heat pump, so you all are familiar with the technology, I would say. Well, the market growth of our sector has been quite spectacular. So for the past 10 years, the heat pump market has been growing, and especially last year we saw an incredible increase with a growth of 38%. And from 2017 to 2021, we actually had a doubling of the market. So now, at the moment, we have around 20 million installed heat pumps, with last year 3 million heat pumps added. If you look at which countries mainly represent this market, so 3 countries are responsible for around half of the market, so that's France, Italy, and Germany, and then the top 10 countries are actually responsible for 86% of the market. So it's really 10 countries that represent a really large share of the market, and then the others quite a small share. But yeah, it's not only at EU level, that at global level, of course, that these shares have been growing, or the market has been growing last year, but also really individually at different countries, we see incredible growth. For example, in the Czech Republic, a growth of 99%. Also in the Netherlands, 80%. Finland, 51%. Belgium, 66%. So we really see a big growth, especially 21 to 22. But even though we have growing markets, still if you compare the heat pump sales to the boiler sales, we see that that's only 38%. There you see 2.7 million instead of the 3 million heat pumps I mentioned before, because here the 2.7 million are really the heating heat pumps, and the 3 million also include the sanitary hot water heat pumps. So there's still some work to do. We are still a smaller share, I would say, of the heating market. So in total, we have 17,800,000 heating heat pumps again. So before you saw this number of 19.9, which was again plus the sanitary hot water heat pumps. So this 17.8 million heating heat pumps supply approximately 15% of all buildings. So just again to show a bit the share. As I mentioned, we really saw this spectacular increase last year. So for us, 2022 was really the tipping point for our sector. And the main reasons for that were, well, I think you all could have guessed, the invasion of Russia into Ukraine and the sudden realization that heat pumps are not only important to achieve our energy and climate goals, they are not only good for air quality, for energy efficiency, and for adding renewables, but also to increase our energy security and to reduce our dependence on Russian natural gas. So the IEA picked this up, and in their 10-point plan to reduce the European reliance on natural gas, heat pumps had a prominent place. Of course, also the EU reacted to that with their Repower EU package. And heat pumps had a quite prominent place in there as well, even in the picture. So literally on the front page, that was a first for our sector. But also inside the different documents that were part of the Repower EU, there are quite some measures targeted specifically at heat pumps. The Commission recommended member states to shift, for example, taxes from fossil fuel bills, from the electricity bills to fossil fuel bills. Also, there were innovation fund calls specifically for heat pumps. Eco-design measures were announced, and so on. But one of the most remarkable things that are mentioned in this Repower EU document were clear targets for heat pumps. So the document aims to have 10 million additional hydronic heat pumps by 2026 and 30 million additional hydronic heat pumps by 2030. But we, as a European Heat Pump Association, extrapolate these numbers to the whole sector, because hydronic heat pumps are only a part of the heat pump sector, around 50%. So that's the water-based systems, but of course you also have the air-based systems, which also replace fossil gas heating. And if you do this extrapolation, well, then you arrive at double, meaning around 60 million additional heat pumps by 2030, which would mean a quadrupling of our sector in the next 8 years. So this is really steep and really ambitious. And another factor that added to this increase in heat pump sales was also what is going on in the US with the Defense Act and the Inflation Reduction Act that are promoting the US production of heat pumps. And also at national level, you see this happening. So this is a map of current and announced bans on fossil fuel heatings, both in existing and or new buildings. So for example, the countries in green, there's already a ban, or there's an announced ban both on gas and oil heating in existing and new buildings. For example, in the Netherlands, there will be the the minimum standard of hybrid heat pumps as from the 1st of January 2026. And in Germany, you have this 65% renewables in heating requirement that is supposed to start on the 1st of January 2024. In France, for example, you have already a ban on oil heating in existing buildings, and a ban on gas heating in new buildings that is announced. So yeah, you can find also this map on our website. A question we often get is, can these heat pumps deliver, can the sector deliver to this big growth? Well, the answer is yes. For 20% of the market, the heat pumps go to new buildings, which are usually fully ready for heat pumps. Then around 40%, there you can do a one-on-one boiler exchange with a heat pump. And there a good test is this fit for 55 degrees test, where you put actually the flow temperature of your heating system at 55 degrees. And if you're still comfortable, then you can do an immediate replacement of your boiler with a heat pump. And then in the other 40% of the cases, there you will have to do some renovation. This can be either a staged renovation or a full renovation from the start. You can opt, for example, for a hybrid heating and then do more renovations where you reduce the gas part of your hybrid heating and so on. So here again to show that indeed also heat pumps, they work in all buildings. Of course, in some you'll have to do some works, but there's heat pumps available for all types of buildings. Also in high-rise buildings, so in apartment blocks, heat pumps work very well. You have different types there as well. You can have apartment buildings where you have an individual heat pump for every apartment unit. Others have one heat pump for the whole block. Others, in this case, for example, you have a geothermal loop, and then you have individual heat pumps connected to that. In the next weeks, we will publish as EHPA also a brochure, a leaflet with more information on heat pumps in apartment buildings, and also really with a number of case studies and actual demonstrations or actual projects from our members. So if you're interested in that, keep an eye on our website, I would say. And also in district heating, heat pumps are an important source, but the next speaker will focus on that, so I will not talk about that right now. Then, a heat pump in every home. How do we go from this 15% to 100% as soon as possible? Well, there's quite some legislative changes ongoing that will help us with that. On this slide, a bit of a general overview of legislation that has been now really heavily debated, I would say. So the EU ETS, a deal has been found, and it will an ETS for buildings and road transport will come into force as of 2027. So this will implement the polluter pays principle, which will incentivize consumers to switch from fossil fuel heating to electric heating, for example, heat pumps. Also the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, which is still under discussion, but you can already see a bit the trends or the general ideas that will be in the final document. The introduction of zero-emission buildings, for which heat pumps would be an obvious choice. Then also the phase-out of fossil fuel boilers. Of course, there's some discussion on the exact wordings and on the exact dates, but the principle will be in normally. And then also the end of fossil fuel subsidies, which should be quite soon as well. Another legislation under discussion is the eco-design proposal to end the sale of standalone fossil fuel boilers in 2029. So this has been announced in the Repower EU package, but it still has to be discussed, of course, with the different stakeholders and member states representatives. So there, the coming weeks will be quite crucial as well. And then, very new is the heat pump action plan that has been announced by the European Commission. This will be published by the end of the year, and also there will be a number of measures pushing forward the implementation of a large-scale heat pump deployments. And then, of course, we have the Renewable Energy Directive and the Energy Efficiency Directive, and because the heat pumps are using renewable energy and are very efficient, these will boost, of course, our sector as well. And then on the side, I put two documents that are important for the supply chain, because of course, if you have this ambitious target, you really need to also support the supply chain to make this a reality, and to also have the manufacturing and the skills to put this into place. And there, the Green Deal Industrial Plan and the Net Zero Industry Act play an important role. So we had for a while, a call for a heat pump accelerator that really put everything into motion and really brings all the stakeholders to the table to have really a coherent and consistent heat pump policy, a long-term vision on the large-scale heat pump deployment. And I would say a number of the asks have already been partially tackled by the Net Zero Industry Act and this heat pump action plan that is upcoming. For example, the ask to really create trust in long-term ambition and to really show that, yes, heat pumps are the future, they are the technology to stay, which will give more confidence to both investors and consumers. I put two things in red here, which I think are really for the residential sector and consumers to really replace their current heating systems. Very, very crucial aspects. And the first one is to make clean heating also economically the most attractive. And also the previous speaker mentioned it, as long as renewable clean heating solutions are more expensive than the fossil fuel solutions, it's very hard, of course, to have a really large-scale deployment. In many countries, indeed, you still have taxes and levies that are higher on the electricity bill than on the fossil fuel bill. So these things really need to be balanced better. And then, of course, the skills aspect is very important as well. You need to have skilled installers that really can give the proper advice and design the heat pump. But also the people working, for example, in these one-stop shops, in administrations, that they know about the technology, that they can guide you from the start until the end. Also the administrative hustle, that they can help you with that. I can give actually a very concrete example for myself. I just moved into a house that we renovated with a heat pump in Brussels, and when I called also for the subsidies, the people from the Brussels region were advising me against installing a heat pump because that would not work in a house in the city. You know, it's something, no, you have to do it in a freestanding house. This is not working. So very clearly why we also need these good skills at at administrative level, at regional level, and so on. So yeah, there's still some work to do, some barriers to tackle. We call this an all-hands-on-deck approach, where we really need all stakeholders, policymakers, to make this long-term, large-scale heat pump deployment really a reality. So, and the last slide is a bit more information also about EHPA. So here you can see some numbers, but I can also mention, as the previous speaker, we are involved in many projects. I do not know them all by heart, but that I suggest you to go to our website, and there you have the full overview of all the projects in which EHPA is involved. Thank you.